All right, so we've been releasing a ton of the tournament casts from this past weekend, namely Duels of Runeterra, and we also had the qualifier for the Project Conquerors Cup. So lots of good tournament action, and today we continue that with Twitch Rivals. So I had the pleasure of being able to co-stream this with Boulevard as always, and goddamn was this it was, let's just say there were some ups and downs. Let's just, to put it in perspective, let's just say there were two Rangers Resolve played in the same combat, and I don't mean by two different players. Anyways, we got first up Swim versus Hyped, which this is actually also going to happen again when we put up the finals for Twitch Rivals that day, because Swim and Hyped both end up making it to the top cut, the final four, and then to the finals as well. So pretty cool stuff. So strap yourself in. We got two competitors that are regulars on the scene for Legends of Runeterra. Hyped has, competed in so many Duels of Runeterra, Jamfest, stuff like that. So awesome to see him in Twitch Rivals. And we all know Swim. So let's go ahead and get into this game.
Hyped isn't really a player that goes outside of the norm too often. Swim does, and I think it rarely works out for him in tournament. We saw him bring King to Elusives to the last Twitch Rivals, as well as, or no, it wasn't King. He brought it to some invitational. Last Twitch Rivals, he played a Lee Sin deck. I think it was Bilgewater Lee Sin. I know, him and Lobster were arguing after the fact about whether or not that was even a correct deck to bring.
I love Oreo in chat. I'm ready for some lackluster gameplay with high quality casting. Well, I will say, this game will probably be the one of the better games in the entire tournament. So this should be pretty interesting.
I want to see Castanova on stream, man. I've never seen this man play Legends of Runeterra. Yes. I want to see it happen. I want to see Dog versus Casanova. That's the matchup I want to see. That's the shit I crave.
Dude, and if Cass can beat Dog, that's going to be huge. I'd love to see that happen.
I think they are going to constantly jump around on the groups, though, so I think this could be the only sort of round that we see out of Group A, which would be a little unfortunate, but it makes sense that they're starting off with this. You do want to highlight a Runeterra player versus a Runeterra player so you can see what high-quality gameplay looks like.
So, yeah, then we can compare all the other games of what they have to look up to in the future. So we do see we got a concussive palm coming out here,
yeah.
And hyped off to a super fast start too with pretty wide board.
Unfortunately for Hyped, I'm pretty sure the reason we see this concussive palm come out is because we're going to see an in-combat Key Guardian to summon both of those Claws of the Dragons and take out all of Hyped's units.
Yeah, and two Claws of the Dragons early on feels real good, especially against something like a mid-range deck that Hype's playing. I guess this really wouldn't be... I was thinking about this earlier. Technically, I guess this deck is classified as aggro, but considering we have something like Darrowing and stuff, do you really consider Scouts aggro?
So on my tier list, one of the things that I do is I put the archetype of the deck that it is, and I have a lot of things that are listed as aggro / mid-range.
Yeah.
I would say, though, that the current iterations of Scouts are definitely... I think I have them listed just purely as aggro. We're not really seeing as many 5 and 6 drops as we used to, where it's the old versions of Bannerman would try to tempo out, and then they do kind of turn into a mid-range deck where they're just playing out a 5 drop, here's a 6 drop, here's another 6 drop, just trying to get stuff like that to stick. And it was pretty inconsistent for them to end the game before turn 10, whereas now it does feel like they're going for this turn 6, turn 7 kills.
Yeah,
I think the difference is triple Relentless Pursuit.
I mean, yeah, it is a very small difference, and Oreo mentioned something tempo in the chat. I usually, on my own anyways, I tend to go aggro, tempo, mid-range, so tempo's kind of that in-between of aggro and mid-range, and I think that's what you're explaining right now. I think a lot of the decks that we're seeing on Demasia's side are actually more tempo than they are mid-range right now.
See, tempo, I think I use, tempo is a word that I don't love to throw around in card games, but I do use it to describe Pilfer and old school Bannerman.
I definitely think Bannerman.
Yeah, I definitely think with triple Relentless Pursuit, I don't think I can, in good conscience, call that anything but an aggro deck.
Okay. Okay, that's a good point. The Relentless Pursuit kind of, yeah, because it might as well be a burn spell at that point.
Yeah.
I know technically you're rallying, but you're doing damage to the opponents.
Yeah, it's basically a burn spell.
Yeah, it's basically a burn spell. So we see Swim is doing a great job stabilizing early on here, and this is not looking too great for Hyped. The rally is also not going to do too much for him right now because Swim does have the Vi on the field to pretty much stave off any. I mean, it can block everything freely right now. So
Yeah. And one thing that I actually did want to touch on in Swim's deck is we do see this Yone. You know, we just saw the beautiful trailer for him, but he is a card in Legends of Runeterra that's been popping up more and more in these Karma Ezreal decks as a one of, and I'm pretty sure that is because it is your best answer to a harrowing out of your opponent, which does typically come down on turn 7 rather than turn 6.
yeah, that's a pretty good point. Yone is a damn good counter to that. It can't counter like the Legion Grenadiers that likely come out of it because they're still going to do damage anyways. So if you're in that situation, it's not going to be too hot. But I don't think Yone really matters when you have a deny in your hand. So he also has this deny for not only something like a harrowing, but the relentless pursuit in Hype's hand. So even if Hype decides to build a big board and decides to somehow finagle some way of having lethal, I'm pretty sure Swim's going to be saving this deny for that exact card.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not even sure if there's an option for him to deny anything else. I think,
Yeah.
I don't remember who we saw. We could have seen, you know, the, what's it called? Oh, God. I think we saw Hype's list, and it was like one of single combat, which is really the only other thing you can take care of. But
Yeah.
I don't think you're saving deny for that specifically.
Nah, because you just deal with it. Like, you have so many resources as an Ezreal deck. Like, you just deal with a card like that, and then you just save your deny for the game changers, which in this case is literally, like you said, just relentless pursuit. The Yone is wait. Okay, we're doing this again. Is it Yone or Yone? Is it confirmed Yone?
Oh my god. I don't think they said it in the cinematic. I don't think they've actually said it out loud anywhere.
Oh, damn it. Here we go again.
I've always said Yone just because, I don't know, I think it's because he's Yasuo's brother, and like you get that like Yasuo, like you pronounce that last sort of vowel.
I got you. I can go with that. I can agree with that reasoning there. All right. And it does stun the Quinn and why do this card gets played all the time now. The Genevieve, yes. The Quinn and the Genevieve, which pretty much shuts down most of Hype's attack turn here, sitting on only 4 mana. And those oh my god. All right, so it feels so bad to have something like a Ranger's Resolve in your hand at this point in the game. Like, otherwise it's a really good card, but it doesn't do anything for you right now.
Yeah, I mean, it'll help you stave off some of the targeting spells from Swim a little bit later on, but it doesn't really do anything against Vi, which is sort of the immediate threat that you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only that, I mean, Swim curved out, like, absolutely amazing. Right? I mean, he has a Vi and a Yone on the field, so that's already 2 huge units that otherwise, I mean, Vi you're going to see a lot of, obviously, but Yone isn't always in these Ezreal decks nowadays, and to have another big body like that on the field to, just eat up one of these other 5-cost, 6-cost units on the side of Hype is pretty rough.
Yeah, and we kind of wondered early on in Runeterra how long is it going to take before we see decks running more than 2 champions, where like 3 champions or 4 champions becomes commonplace. And I really like these adaptations of the Karma Ezreal decks out of late, where they're running 1 Vi instead of 3 Karma. I think it's, it works out really well against the Scout decks that you are seeing in every lineup that are supposed to have a good matchup against you. And I think the Vi is really great, and we see it doing a lot here for Swim.
Oh my god, it's completely it's like winning the game. It single-handedly is winning him the game right now. Like, sure, Eye of the Dragon is neat. It gets you some lifesteal, and it'll give you some survivability into the late game. But, like, Hype would have had way more attacks and way more, like, good setups for an attack with, like, not as crappy blocks with his Vi on the field. And right now, there's just like, nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, Swim's overall in a commanding position, and that is something that, like, happens when you are playing a deck like Hyped and you just overload on spells. We haven't seen these Ranger's Resolves do anything yet. Double Will of Ionia means that even the targeting spells that are coming out aren't going to, get denied by something like that. The Relentless Pursuit, we still have a deny lining up for that. And overall, Hype's hand's looking real weak. Genevieve is in there, and she's a really strong card, but as Hype loses more and more of the board, she becomes much less impactful.
Yep, and there goes Quinn to the Vi. We're going to get a free Mystic shot in the hand thanks to Ezreal's Nexus Strike, and oh my god. Yeah, like, this turn now, it's going to be even harder for Hype to come back. Like, he needs... I mean, even this Genevieve in hand, I mean, that's kind of like top of curve for him, right? And he still is not... Like, that's just not really going to help because his board is just not wide enough. The Vi kills pretty much everything. Granted, one more block or attack from the Vi will kill the Vi, so we'll see how long this actually sticks on the board for.
Yeah, so Hype had an interesting play where he passes back to Swim, and sort of offers up the trade of you don't play the Mystic Shot, I don't develop any more of the board this turn. And I think that's a really good play from Hype because he has such little development. And once we saw the Yone out of Swim, there's no more punish for not going for open attacks outside of something like maybe a Thermogenic Beam. But, Swim not going for it says that I need to level up this Ezreal sooner rather than later. This Vi is cool, but she's not sticking around a whole lot longer. I do need to win the game with Ezreal, so I'm going to go ahead and fire off the Mystic Shot. And Hyped has a pretty weak developmental turn on the other side because Genevieve, you want to play that on your attack turn, not your opponent's turn.
Now, I will say, very crucially, Hyped, I mean, a lot of his units are pretty healthy right now. So even this Claw of the Dragon is not really going to get any sort of trade off this turn from a block. Again, this Vi will end up trading with something. So a lot of this board will start to trade down, but this might force something like, I mean, Swim has 3 Will of Ionias in his hand. This
and
is
the
like,
mana to play them.
Yeah, and the mana to play them. So you got to think at least one is going to come out. It's going to feel kind of bad having one come out on a Genevieve if he has to. I don't know. I mean, maybe to save the Eye of the Dragon, but that seems really... Okay, yeah, looks like he's going to save the Ezreal.
Yeah, the Mystic Shot in his hand is an Ezreal, but it looks like, it makes a little bit more sense to just defend the one that you have down, since you do need to fire off these Will of Ionias.
Wow.
He's actually just going to play both of them as well, which I think this makes a fair amount of sense. I thought maybe he's going to want to trade his Vi into one of the Genevieves this turn, but the awkward part is, Genevieve's just going to pick up apart your board in the meantime. You can't block her with Vi because, the Challenger is coming out. It's just a really awkward situation. I think the double Will, as unfortunate as it feels, was the correct play.
Yeah, wow, that's such an awkward... I don't think I've ever seen that, It's definitely an awkward play on the side of Swim. He does... he's very safe this turn now, which is the thing. He also is in a position where... So that War Chefs, I believe, will go down to 2/3 because it's +1/+1 for the round. So that means this Vi can't actually level up by pulling the War Chefs next turn. So he has that as an option to him as well if he does open attack. So there's a lot more options for Swim now. Now that he has, gone ahead and used those Will of Ionia. So it seems like kind of an awkward play, but might actually work out for him here.
Yeah, and the problem was that was a lot of Swim's resources, and those are -1s. Even if we see this third Will of Ionia, Swim is just down on cards, and Hyped, once again has double Genevieve in hand, and now has the ability to play both Bannerman and Genevieve on the same turn. And Swim has to find a Karma soon. We praised this Vi earlier on in the game for sort of helping him hold on in the early to / mid game, but now that you have this Rummage, you need a Karma. You're at 6 out of 8 Ezreal targets. You could theoretically level it this turn or next if you really wanted to, though it expends so many of your resources that you're not going to have the availability to actually kill your opponent. And it looks like Swim actually wants to throw this Vi in front of the Bannerman to preserve the life total, rather than try and use it to take out a Genevieve a little bit later on, knowing that that's not a situation that's realistically going to happen, as Hyped is going to continue to play them on his own turn and never give Swim the chance.
Wow, yeah, that just feels so bad there. I was actually expecting him to take a little bit of damage just because the Eye of the Dragon will be going off next turn. So as of now, he'll still be able to heal for 2 and get back up to 20, but I'm actually a little bit surprised that he left bolt attacks through there. And the 2 Genevieve. So I think at this point, right, so you got to think Swim's probably hand tracking too. He's got to know that those 3 cards all the way to the left, they're just chilling.
Yeah, so he's probably got a read on 1, maybe even 2 Relentless Pursuits at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So he also knows, and that's probably what led to him making that Will of Ionia decision on Genevieve. He's probably thinking, all right, he doesn't have much more units in his hand to actually utilize the Genevieve in the most efficient fashion. So I actually, just taking a look at the hand now on the side of Hyped, he also has a Bannerman, and the Bannerman can't really get much value either. And something else is going to die to this, this Mystic Shot from Ezreal. So I really do like how Swim has kind of navigated the last couple of turns here.
Yeah, and I think Swim's pretty close to lethal because Hype didn't go for any of those blocks. If I remember correctly, this Ezreal was at 6 out of 8. So even with this Mystic Shot getting denied by the Ranger's Resolve, it's still going to count for a target. And then, Swim with this Rummage probably has enough refuel to just finish off those last 9 points of life out of Hyped.
I want to touch on something you said real quick, too. You mentioned, he needs a Karma. Lucky in chat actually specifically said that, he likes the Vi Splash, but the consistency of 3 and 3. I mean, that is a good point, right? I mean, when you are playing the 3 Karma, you're much more consistently going to get the Karma. We see here, he got the Vi, hasn't gotten any Karma all game. It looks like that might not actually matter, so we'll see, but...
There are definitely trade-offs for the 3 Karma versus the Vi. We've seen players, Karma Ezreal players specifically, like die to Darrowing Harius with 2 or 3 copies of Karma in hand. And if one of those was a Vi, it would have made a total difference on the match.
You're not gonna call you out on that, right?
No.
You didn't even catch yourself saying it, huh? Darrowing Harius.
Oh god.
Dude, I think I've said the same exact thing, to be honest with you.
That sounds like oh, this is my pet hamster, Darrowing Harius. Like Hamtaro's weird cousin.
Oh my god, Hamtaro, that's a throwback. Oh my god. That was on Adult Swim, wasn't it?
I think so. If you guys are curious about how old I am, I just made a Hamtaro reference, so that's that gives you a baseline.
Yeah, you're aging yourself, man. So it looks like exactly what you were saying is going to end up happening. He's going to go ahead and rummage. Wow. This is that's 2 damage. He has the gotcha. I think he just wins.
Swim
right?
has lethal. It's just a matter of how do I want to do it. And Swim gonna play it safe. I don't think there's anything that can stop this.
Well,
out of hype.
I think it's funny, right? Like, because he's thinking right now. I feel like there's situations like this, specifically with Ezreal, where you overthink no matter what. Because in the back of your mind, my opponent doesn't have any cards in his deck that can actually stop the spells from going off. But you're like, well, but does he? Like, is there still potentially something that he might have? So I'm just going to pass, and I want to be the last one to play a card no matter what.
Yeah, so the one thing, if you've ever coached anybody in anything, especially a video game, and you ask them, why did you do that? And they say, I don't know. That's a problem. That's like the coachable moment where it's like, well, if you don't know what you're playing around, then don't play around it. And that happens a lot with Ezreal players where it's like, ooh, I don't want to play this shit. And it's like, what are you playing around? It's like, I don't know. And it's like, well, figure it out. You have his deck list in front of you. What do you point at a card and tell me what you're playing around? And if you're not playing around anything, just fire them off.
So very happy to see this deck now after Swim went ahead, got a pretty decently quick Ezreal victory, I gotta say. And now we're going into game 2 here with this. I know this is deceiving everybody. I know this seems weird, but this is not a deep sea monster deck. I repeat, this is not a deep sea monster deck, and I promise you, I'm not lying. So Swim has decided to go all in on the Maokai strategy. We'll see if this ends up working for him. We've at one point tried to do it.
So one of the problems that I had when I tried the Maokai strategy is that I tried it fairly recently, and I was like, okay, this probably works about as often as I want it to. That's just not a good strategy in the meta. And I definitely feel like with Darius Harrowing being one of the stronger decks in the meta, this is just not a meta where this Maokai strategy is like a viable win condition. And
this is what I meant, man. Like, high risk, high reward. Maybe he wins the tournament with this troll deck, and just it works out for him. Honestly, I'm rooting for him. It's totally cool. Although I don't know. I don't want to say his name though. I don't want to cast or curse. The other thou whose name who we shall not speak, who I want to win, I will not speak his name.
Swim?
Nope, it's somebody else, but I'm not going to say his name because I cursed Nola Gold this past weekend.
Okay, it's Casanova. I'll cast or curse them all day, Casanova. You got to overcome this on all fronts. You got to win your game, and you got to beat the casters.
I cannot confirm nor deny the name of this person.
So, looking at Swim's lineup, it looks like he's here to target Karma Ezreal. He's got the Braum Swain in there, which we had talked a little bit last week about how that's a Karma Ezreal counter. Karma Ezreal is really the only deck I can think of in the format where you're trying to pick on it with this Maokai win condition. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look at it from that lens, it makes a little bit more sense. The question is, how many of these newer... Well, I guess, how many of the newer players bought Karma Ezreal isn't really relevant when you know that you're going into pool number 1 against other Legends of Runeterra players. You guys all have to bring Karma Ezreal. It's not super user-friendly. I wouldn't be surprised if down in some of the lower brackets we see a lot more 3 aggro lineups. The question is, does this work out for him in top 8, where he does have to mix pools a little bit, and your opponent might not have a Karma Ezreal for you to pick on? And I think at that point, he's just relying on his player skill over the other players to kind of carry him through to victory.
Well, yeah, and I think you nailed it, right? Like, regardless... I think we can all pretty safely assume that somebody like Hyped or Swim or Cass or whoever else is in this higher tier of Legends of Runeterra players could probably beat most of the other players in the tournament with relatively any deck that's at least decently constructed, just because of their experience with the game. So maybe that Swim strategy, like you said, if this deck is catered to Karma Ezreal, great, he wins Karma Ezreal matchups, and then everybody else he's not really too worried about because he knows he can still beat whoever else in the tournament.
Yeah, and here we see Hyped once again just getting overloaded on spells in hand, and we might even see a couple of Relentless Pursuits fired off on a turn like this. It is sort of, swims down to 1 mana. I think you fire off the Ranger's Resolve, that's pretty safe. Or you could even go for the Riposte if you really want to, and then fire off... no, Riposte doesn't leave you mana for Relentless Pursuit, so I think the Ranger's Resolve makes a fair bit of sense. But yeah, I think we have to see at least one of these come down here, right?
I don't see why not a Ranger's Resolve. I mean, I feel like 1 mana is to save your misfortune is huge value.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I meant the Relentless Pursuit.
Okay. Oh, do we see the Relentless come down?
Yeah.
Let's see. After this block, oh, almost definitely, yeah. Because now if he goes to try to block with Maokai, it's gonna die to the misfortune. So that's just extra damage right there. I do think you have to start putting the pressure on Swim as early as possible with the deck that Hype's playing right now. So yeah, 100%. And you know what? On top of that, you want to know why you play Relentless Pursuit right now? Because of how many times when you don't play it, you get screwed with it 3 more turns later. So yes,
if you only had 1 copy, I could see holding it back. But because you have 2, it's one of those things where like if you have 3 deny in your hand, like you just deny the first thing that you see because it's like I don't want to die with multiple denies in my hand.
Yeah, it's at that point it's like time. It's the time value of keeping the card in your hand, and right now the time value is use it the hell now. So, and Swim does actually play the Jaw Hunters, which does give him a token. So this does prevent a lot of the damage, but he's not really getting any clean trades off. He's just basically saving face here to literally saving his face from from damage. So,
and Swim has a pretty good follow up turn. He's going to be able to get that Thresh down. That's going to give him 2 challengers between the Maokai and the Thresh. Unfortunately, not going to have any kind of follow up with the 1 mana, and is probably just in a position to get blown out by this Riposte out of Hyped.
Yeah, curious. So we were talking earlier though, Hype with the last game. He's got a more spell heavy deck than this deck typically runs for the Demacia Bilgewater. So if he continues, okay, no, he draws Grizzled Rangers. So I was gonna say if he draws spells, it might be pretty good for Swim. But the fact that he drew 2, he has now 2 Grizzled Rangers. That's really good for Hyped. And he also has a turn where he can play a Grizzled Ranger and a Repost on the same turn. So it's gonna be looking rough for Swim in the next couple of turns. Thresh is a big boy.
I just realized that we have... Oh, don't play the Grizzled Ranger. Oh, no. We had Riposte and Relentless Pursuit mana. I think we had a lot of potential for a massive blowout here.
For game?
Actually, I don't think it was game, just because, like, either you save the... Okay, yeah, so because we're challenging onto the hired gun, Riposte wouldn't have actually killed anything. Like, it could have saved your misfortune, but then you're just like basically you're only getting through an attack with a Grizzled Ranger, and that could even be blocked up by the Maokai if someone really wanted to. So yeah, never mind. My math was just a little bit off on how things worked out. The Riposte we're going to see come out here. Does it save the misfortune, or does it save the hired gun to push the most amount of damage onto Thresh?
Oh, I feel like you got to save the misfortune. Like actually, that's hard because Swim has a lot of heal in his deck. He might look low now at 7, but he's got multiple grasps in there. We did see the deck list. He's got 3 Vile Feast, 2 Grasp of the Undying, 3 Thorny Toad, and 3 Dead Blooms. So,
does he play Withering Wail?
He's not playing Withering Wail.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense then, because I was just thinking, if you're saving this 1 health misfortune and then you're going wide with these Grizzled Rangers, like you're really just setting yourself up into a really poor Withering Wail position. But Swim doesn't run it. That makes a bit more sense. And it looks like Swim is just 1 mana shy of firing off Ruination this turn as well. So Hyped really has to smell the blood in the water and go for broke here.
Yeah, that does look to be what he's doing. Looks like Swim will get another, crucially though, sapling from Maokai. And God, this Maokai is doing work as far as saving Swim's ass early on here. This is insane. He does also have the Devourer that's going to be able to get rid of something on the field right now. So Swim's in a pretty good spot. It's just about, I think no matter what, he survives it.
No,
there's
if he doesn't...
Pursuit.
Yeah, I was about to say, if he goes for the Grizzled Ranger and then Misfortune gets to level, that could be lethal.
And actually, yeah, what is she at? 2 right now for her level?
Yep.
Ooh.
So we do see the capability. Actually, Misfortune gets to level anyway because Hype just plays the second Grizzled Ranger and then goes for the Scout attack. He doesn't even need the Relentless Pursuit.
Yeah, no, exactly. So he does not even need the Relentless Pursuit right now. He's going to go ahead and attack the second one. So I think that's what Swim was thinking with playing this Devourer, because he didn't want the Misfortune to level, but now that's going to be
I'm pretty sure this is lethal, even if
4
like just
damage?
taking into account the misfortune. Like so, like you have to block this first Grizzled Ranger hit, which means you're gonna lose something off your board. Your opponent isn't, so like all of a sudden you're down a blocker, and then I think the misfortune triple damage plus the overwhelm on her is just going to be enough for lethal.
Wait, no, it's not. Oh wait, yeah, it is. I was gonna say if he had mana for oh god,
The
sap
sap
magic?
magic?
Yeah. I was like, the one time sap magic is actually useful. Let's get it. Oh, actually, no. Sap magic wouldn't even have worked either because of the 1 damage. So even if he, oh no, he could have done it with the thresh. Okay, yeah.
So it looks like he's going to Fading Memories the Sapling just to not lose that extra blocker. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is still actually going to be lethal unless the Thresh levels from this.
No, is this lethal? I don't think this is lethal. Is it?
It's not lethal if
No.
Thresh levels. But anything else is going to fall down to 1 HP. Swim is going to go down to 3, and then Misfortune overwhelming onto a 1 HP unit will be lethal. But like I said, if this Thresh levels, that changes things.
Yeah, no, I think the thresh levels.
Okay.
So yeah, wow. Talk about a. So now, wow. So if he's able to come back from 1 health, this will be crazy.
I don't think he can, just because Hyped has the Relentless Pursuit and a Grizzled Ranger. So even if he goes Relentless Pursuit, you fire off Ruination, then I just attack with my Badger Bear and I just win the game.
And so yeah, because this thresh is still gonna die, and he doesn't really have. He has a. Wait, no, he's only gonna have 8 mana, so he can't even Ruination next turn.
He has 1 spell mana.
Oh, he does have.
But, Vengeance isn't going to be enough. Ruination's not going to be enough. He doesn't have anything to play with the Maokai, so this is just going to be lethal out of Hyped.
No, there's no combination that Swim will be able to win right here.
Yeah, even if Hyped gets greedy and plays the Genevieve first, he still has the mana for the Relentless Pursuit, and the Ruination's not enough of a punish into the Grizzled Ranger, so Hyped going to tie up this series 1-1.
He better not go greedy with the Genevieve. That doesn't make no sense. So, yep. Wow. So we are going to go, it looks like, to a game 3 here. And Swim doing the usual, thinking as long as humanly possible about what to play. And I don't really think there's anything he can do. So wait, is there a reason to... All right, now that he played the Thresh, what are you playing around playing the Genevieve with Swim having 4 mana?
I think it's more so just the fact that there's nothing... Like, that there's nothing your opponent can do.
I don't know, because I feel like you can just... Or, well, actually, no. That means he would have had to play Relentless Pursuit and then wait another turn anyways.
Yeah, like, you still have the Relentless Pursuit. You might as well, just get more out there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and this is going to be the Relentless, and yep. And Swim knew he had Relentless. You can see it in his face, too. I mean, that's that card that's been there for quite some time now in his hand, so... All right. Moving on to Game 3. Swim versus Hyped. And it looks like... So there are counters. There are countdowns for this, though. There is only 12 minutes and 20 seconds left for this.
So he started when he started Game 1 against Hyped, his counter was at 38 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that, too. Yep.
So I don't know if there's actually still another 12 minutes after this 12 minutes is done, or...
Do we really know anything about this tournament?
No.
Okay,
so hold on. Now I'm a little lost. So I remember that one player banned PZ Ionia. I forgot that it was Swim. And we had said that, it looked like Swim's lineup was here to pick on Ezreal Karma, but then he banned Ezreal Karma.
Yeah, and now we're looking at good old... Wow, this... they need to switch the screen. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So now we do have the Darrowing Harrius deck.
Oh, come on, man. You just wait until BBG's on screen.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I never mispronounced BBG's name ever.
I thought you were about to mispronounce it right there, and I was like, "Oh my, get his ass." But, okay, so we had talked. We thought Swim was playing this Maokai strategy to target out the Karma Ezreal, and he banned it. So clearly, that's not the strategy. Does this deck on paper look to you like it's going to be able to beat the Darrowing deck?
Well, okay, that's exactly what I was just going to get into, because I mean, obviously, on the surface, any aggro deck versus something with this much lifesteal and this much life gain is going to have an issue. I mean, he's already got the Deadbloom Wanderer early on here. On top of that, Maokai has a health breakpoint of 4, which a lot of times will help with the Overwhelm unit. So And Jaw Hunters will kill almost all of the Overwhelm units. So I don't know. This deck is looking like it has a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this Thresh really gives you a better matchup than the Sea Monsters would in general. I think that Riptide, because like we've seen more Riptides come out of Sea Monster players in order to combat this Darrowing deck a little more effectively, just getting those stuns out, having a little more access to things like that. And I think one of the reasons that we still see the Devourer of the Depths in this deck from Swim is so that it can take things like this Iron Ballista off the table for the Harrowing. And obviously, like I would hope that he has tested this matchup relentlessly, in which case he will know that he does have, like, he has to know that he's either favored or not favored here, right? And if he isn't favored and he didn't ban this, I have no idea what he's doing. Actually, I do. He doesn't care about winning the tournament. He'd rather just not take the salty run back against Dog. He's going to go home with his tail tucked between his legs. So if he loses this game and it doesn't look close, then all I can assume is that Swim didn't care about his rivals.
And I will say this already looks a little rough because he's not really getting full value of the lifesteal out of that Dead Bloom Wanderer there, having to take that block. It seems like he valued killing the Crimson Disciple more than the actual lifesteal itself, which that's tough. That's definitely a tough call to make. He does have the Jaw Hunters going into an attack turn here, so we'll see what Hype decides to play. Hype actually doesn't have the good old Basilisk Rider, so it looks like that's not going to be getting pulled this turn.
So this is a play that we see a lot out of Sea Monster players, where you just pass initially when you have the Jaw Hunters, understanding that your opponent wants to develop a little bit more, and then you can punish them with the Jaw. I was curious to see if Hyped was actually going to take the pass and bank the spell mana, just because he does have this Decimate in his hand. But it looks like he's just going to hand that Jaw Hunters value over to Swim, who really doesn't have a lot of Jaw Hunters value to find. He was really hoping to see a Basilisk Rider come down this turn.
Yeah, and he will be, unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be at 6 mana next turn, so he will not have enough for the Grasp and the Vile Feast, which kind of feels bad. Honestly, looking at the board, this doesn't look great for Swim. Hyped is getting value with this Demolitionist on the Ballista because that was likely what he was thinking about pulling with the Jaw Hunters. So now he's got a decision to make, and it's not easy because it's like nothing that you pull here is really giving you any value whatsoever. Oh,
did you just notice that there's a timer on the side? On the left side of the screen rather than Swim's timer. So we do have 18 minutes left.
Oh, okay. So he must... Oh, that's Swim's timer. Gotcha. And I actually didn't realize he had spell mana, so he was able to play the Vile Feast there. So it would seem to me he's going to save the Jaw Hunters as a blocker, possibly.
No, I mean, it doesn't really offer up much value as a blocker rather than an attacker, right? The Overwhelm is still going to push through onto your face in a significant way. But yeah, his next turn's looking real weak. I mean, he's got the Grasp of the Undying, so if Hype does just go for the Draven, then Swim actually has a pretty decent turn available to him. This is where we're going to see the life total kind of start to swing back into Hype's favor, who has, so far, Swim's done a really good job of staving off the aggression. So maybe this deck does just have a favorable Darrowing matchup.
Ooh, okay. So this is very good for Swim if he does decide to grasp this wow. Draven. Not Darius, Draven. You know how often I mix them up? Oh my god.
I mean, they're both brothers from the same region. Names start with the same letters and have an R in there. It's understandable.
Wow, he even gets the negate on the Imperial Demolitionist, which is pretty big as well. So he's still getting the 3 lifesteal value technically out of the Grasp of the Undying.
Yeah.
It feels bad though. Like I feel like he's already wasted so much heal just to prevent Hype from being able to get more aggressive. I mean, he is going to have some awesome turn 6 plays with the Devourer coming up, but it just feels a little bit bad.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look great, but Swim is burying Hyped in card advantage right now, and it looks like he is going to go for an inefficient block. He does want to line up that Devourer onto the Grenadier on the following turn, but maybe decides that, it's just a little bit too much damage to be taking right now. The block with the Spiderling is just a little bit too inefficient. Is instead just going to take that 2 damage, throw it in the Harrowing pool, but he does have a Rumination to sort of counter that play out if it does come up.
Yeah, and that is a consideration that's very important too, right? If you do Devour that Legion Grenadier, it does not get revived with the Harrowing, and you got to think, was that taken into consideration when Swim decided to make that block? He didn't really have another good value block because, obviously the Precious Pet has Fearsome. It's not going to be able to get blocked by the Spiderling, but he is going to now go ahead and use the Devour. It's going to be the worst Devourer value I've seen in quite some time, but it gets the job done.
Sometimes you just got to get that 4/4 on board.
Yeah, and I can't say enough, man. I mean, I've said this so many times when we're looking at aggro matchups similar to this. Most of your value thought and card advantage thought goes out the window when you're playing against aggro decks. It's stay alive as long as possible and do what you got to do.
All right, so this could be that's a little unfortunate that because Swim doesn't have Ruination mana this turn, so this was like Hype's one sort of chance to get off the Harrowing. Granted, it would have been a pretty weak Harrowing, and I think we are going to see the Basilisk Rider come down now. If this whiffs, that's going to be awful, as it does open it up to actually die to the Devourer of the Depths, so I think Swim's pretty committed to just vengeancing this Darius this turn. He does actually get it off.
All right. It looks like they are screen grabbing too, because you can see Hype's hand is a little bit above, ahead of Swim's. So it did hit. That's good. No feels bad for the Allegiance miss this game. And now Swim has a decision, because this Devourer doesn't really get too good a value right now playing it, because he can really only target the Demolitionist. He does have the straight up Vengeance on something like the Darius. And he has a decent block with this Devourer onto the Basilisk Rider, and it does look like that is the route he's going to go. This just feels like a good turn. Like this just feels like such a good, efficient turn for Swim here. It's a little dangerous going down to 10 health. Like I feel like the second you hit like that last double-digit health against this sort of deck, you get a little scared. But I think he's going to be fine considering what else is left in his hand.
Yeah, the scary sort of part here is that if he does play this Maokai first, that does mean that Hype guaranteed gets down that Legion Grenadier, is likely to get it into the death pool for a Harrowing later on. And I'm trying to I think that's like 2 damage off of lethal when all is said and done. Just between the Grenadier Revive, and the Decimate, because, Ruination's a really good answer for the Harrowing unless multiple Legion Grenadier are coming out of it.
Yeah, and I think this is why I said 10 was scary. I think this is going to come down to, can Swim top deck some sort of healing? Another Grasp would be great right now. A Deadloom Wanderer would be great. Just anything, even a Vile Feast, like literally anything is going to probably allow him to stay alive in this game. But if he doesn't draw something in the next 2 turns, there goes one Vile Feast. Then he might be in for a hurting here.
Yeah, and, Hyped has a lot of comeback potential in a game like this. We are going to see Decimates continue to come out. If Swim can't find any healing, then Hype still has a pretty good chance coming back in, and that's why we see this Darius Harrowing deck so often. It's got so many tools to take it to the late game and still burn you out a little bit later on. And Swim isn't going to have a chance to line up the Devourer onto this Grenadier. So Hype has a lot of top decks that he could have. Iron Ballista is not one of them.
Yeah, no, Iron Ballista is not the best top deck in the world. We do see Sap Magic again, which still doesn't heal Nexus. It doesn't heal Nexus. Oh,
so the Harrowing's actually pretty good. It's going to force the Ruination out of Swim, who does have the board advantage, and it also means he's not going to get the Devourer down onto the Legion Grenadier.
Wait. Okay. Wait, did he only got 1?
Or this is one. No, this is lethal because Hype still has the Iron Ballista mana. He gets to play that after the Ruination fired up, and Swim is just dead.
Wow, he still had the 3 mana. That's crazy.
Okay, I lied. I said it wasn't Iron Ballista, but it is Iron Ballista.
No, it's Iron Ballista. It's wow.
Iron Ballista was the one. That was the perfect top deck.
That feels so bad, and yeah, I mean, Lucky in chat, said he's surprised he's not seeing Withering. Honestly, he has a ton of heal in that deck, though. It's just insane. Like, he just didn't. I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of those trades in the early game, he maybe should have traded a little bit differently just to avoid wasting so much heal, possibly.
Yeah.
As always, if you're new, this is the place for your tournament content. I also do some deck videos and stuff. Been a little busy lately with the casting, so we're going to get back on that train eventually, but all sorts of Legends of Runeterra content coming your way, so don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and if you're returning, welcome the hell back. Always good to have you guys here.